welcome to Intersect, where church meets culture. My name is Josh Desch. I'm the lead pastor at Northeast Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina, and I am joined, as always, by my wonderful and highly productive wife, Betsy.
Hey everybody. Glad to be here. I don't know if I'm always highly productive.
You are incredibly high productive. If a mother of four is going to be productive, no question. And we are thrilled with the guest that we have today. We have I'm not just blowing smoke when I say a significant Christian theologian. He is a professor at Covenant College, where we are alum.
Yes,
but we are
that's
thrilled to have Dr. Kelly Kapic joining us today from Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us.
This is fun. It's a delight to be with you guys, be in your space. I love it. It's fun to know of your ministry from afar. So thanks for letting me in for a little bit.
Oh, what a joy.
Absolutely. What a joy. So, Bets, you showed up at Covenant College in 2001.
Yep.
I showed up in 2002. And Dr. Kapic, you showed up in 2001.
That's right.
So we were kind of there at the beginning. Kelly is a dearly loved professor on the campus of Covenant, a wonderful teacher that we both got to experience for doctrine classes when we were at Covenant College. But the Lord has also blessed our guest today with a wonderful writing ministry. And the book that we are going to talk about, well, we're really going to talk about two books. We've got them both right here in front of Betsy. Okay, the main book is You're Only Human. Hold it up there, Betsy. You're Only Human. How Your Limits Reflect God's Design and Why That's Good.
It's a good one.
Published in 2022, winner of Christianity Today's Best Book of the Year award in theology. And you know your book is really good when they turn it into a devotional too.
Yep.
So we've also got this devotional, and Bets has read all of You're Only Human. I've been working my way through the devotional, You Were Never Meant to Do It All. These are really, we're just excited. These are wonderful resources because I think we all feel an incredible pressure these days to be these productive people that transcend our limits. And I can't wait to dig into a discussion about embracing our humanness. Kelly's the husband of Tabitha and the father of two children too. So once again, we're so glad to have you.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah, so as Josh just said, I read this fall, I read the book, You're Only Human. Really enjoyed it. There's so much good stuff in this book. And in the limited time that we have, we won't even really begin to scratch the surface. But also, yeah, as Josh highlighted, this new book that just came out this year, right, Dr. Kapic? Just came out in 2025.
Just in May.
Yeah, so this one breaks down a lot of the same material, but in little pieces, right? So this would be great for individuals or for groups who want to dig into it together.
I love it. Daily devotionals.
Yeah,
I love it.
Very doable little sections to read every day.
Yeah, we kind of did it for particularly like churches where the small groups go through it. It's like 40 days and they break it up. So.
Yeah, that's great. And it's real good material. So a lot to talk about there. So as we jump into the book, just why don't you give us some background and context for the writing of the material and help us to understand the central premise?
Yeah, I've just met people that are really busy, and I can't relate to them at all. So.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
That's so weird. Who's busy?
These are the kind of things that one researches and writes trying to figure out their own life and sanity, and what does that look like? So it's really not an exaggeration to say it's something I've been thinking about and wrestling with for decades. But the idea of You're Only Human is the short version is my wife and I got married in 1993, did PhD and everything, been at Covenant, as you said, since 2001. In 2008, my wife got cancer, and that's a longer story, but was declared cancer-free a year later after surgeries and other hard things. I thought, that was really hard, but thanks that we're through that. Our kids were young at the time. And then in 2010, the summer of 2010, she developed chronic pain and fatigue. And took 6 years at the Mayo Clinic, everything. But anyways, from that day in summer, in June in 2010 to this day, there's never been a day without pretty massive pain and fatigue for her.
Wow.
And if you saw her, she looks great, and she's given me permission to talk about it. But it's just one of these realities. She's still incredibly gifted and everything. But so, long story short, part of that with her encouragement, I did end up a project I worked on was on pain and suffering. And that came out as a book called Embodied Hope. And the reason I mention all of that is it was only after working through learning to be more honest with God about lament, about the brokenness of the world, that I actually finally felt qualified and ready to talk about the goodness of being human. And many people said, you could read them in the opposite order, but for me, to be able to experience them in this order of suffering and then talking about the goodness of being human. Because part of what happened is my wife and I are productive people. We like to, all this. And cancer, we had to cut out things. But then when chronic pain, it was like, no, you got to cut out more. And when you do start to think it is all about how much you get done or how many things you're, contributing to or whatever, it raises questions of identity and things. And so that's a long way of saying, now to get to the book, You're Only Human, the fundamental thesis is this: finitude is not sin. That's a fancy word, but finitude just means limits. Like we're limited in space. You can only be one place at a time. You're limited in knowledge. You can actually only know so much. You're limited in time. But the Christian word for that is creature. We're creatures. And I do think in our circle, and including like reform circles, we have often confused being a creature with just being sinful. And so what that means for listeners who are confused at this point is we feel guilty for things we shouldn't. You don't have to feel guilty for being a creature. God likes human creatures. He made us that way. And so when we confuse being a creature with being a sinner and combine those in unhelpful ways, it hurts our lives. So we can go, that's a lot of words, but maybe that helps as a basis.
For sure. Yeah, I think, as you just said, when people think about their limitations, they so often view them as something to transcend. And we're discipled by the world in that way to view ourselves as self-made, as self-determined, as limitless in ways that we don't even recognize. We're being discipled in that. And like so much of culture, it's caught, not taught, right? So it's not that people say stuff outright necessarily. It's just that you catch it by virtue of a million different ways. How do you think we receive and absorb these ideas that limitations are bad? And how should we think about our limitations? And building on that, how are limitations grounded into God's good design?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many ways we could go, on both sides of that. But starting with the first, I love it. You're exactly right. It is caught, not taught. Although even some of this is taught. But I didn't plan on researching high schools and college stuff, but it ended up being significant. Like the average day of a high school kid, and there's some qualifications. It's normally upper and middle class, but it could be public or private school. Those kids are off. And I'd be conservative. I've been speaking all over and asking, and this gets confirmed again and again. But they leave by 7:30 in the morning. They're at school till 3:30. They change and do an extracurricular activity till 6:30. They shove food down. Then they go do another extracurricular activity and homework, or just homework till about 11 every single night.
That's so true. We have 3 teenagers.
And we kind of think if you can't do it, you're weak. And what's interesting is often we're like, and I understand this is kind of what I thought early on in the research, but I thought, well, yeah, of course students are up till 11 doing homework, but if they just stopped staring at screens, they wouldn't need to be.
Yeah, yep.
But what's interesting, and it's a different conversation. Screens are a real issue, but rather than just blaming screens and social media, I now think they're a sign of a deeper malady. I actually think, taking shots of heroin, we all kind of like, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not a good way to get through your day.
That's
but what we have decided is that looking at your phone is an acceptable drug. And part of what's going on is we cannot handle silence or calm. We have to fill it with distraction, partly because if we don't distract ourselves, we think of all the things we're supposed to be doing.
That's so true.
And so part of what's going on with students is just overwhelmed, and it's escape. So anyway, and that could carry on. I could tell you about college students, how overwhelmed they are, how colleges cannot keep up with the mental needs. So that just keeps going. And I talk to a lot of pastor groups. They're exhausted. People are literally having mental breakdowns, physical
Yeah.
breakdowns. We can feel it
Yeah.
in society. Non-Christians are talking about this. There's a reason why, calls for just whether it's breathing techniques or mindfulness, we're just trying to figure out how do you do this. So I'm interested in giving some theological words to this. And I don't think we have and here's, I guess, what I would also say. We don't fundamentally, I think the church has tried to answer this problem of all of us feeling exhausted and overwhelmed in actually the same way that the church answers the same way as the world is. Someone tells you, I'm just overwhelmed. I've got all these kids and I've got this going on. I got this going on. And our response is, you know what you need? Better time management.
Yes.
If you just woke up a little bit earlier, if you just got this better email program.
For sure.
You got it. And it's not a time management problem. It's a theological and pastoral problem,
I love that.
So, I'll end with this. Parents feel guilty for not having their kids do everything. And actually, part of it is having the courage to say, here's a wonderful thing we're not going to have you do.
Yep.
That takes so much courage in our day.
It really does. I think that we all feel pressure to be the best at something, to make sure that our kids have stuff to put on their resumes as they move toward college. This is an interesting question that I think plays into this, that as you already touched on, our modern technology, I think how much of it is attempting to transcend human limits, and how much does that affect us? Like, take social media, as you already brought up. We have relationships with so many people. Right. When you're talking about face-to-face relationships, you can be in a group, but you can't be friends with 1,000 people at once. I just feel like we weren't built to process all of this information that's coming at us nonstop at all times. And at our core, we're actually lonely and anxious.
Yeah.
We're disconnected. We all have awareness fatigue. You're aware of the food you eat, the food dyes, the pesticides, the climate change, the toxins, the exercise, all of these different things. And we're on this treadmill of technology, I think, and we're all just exhausted by it. So how do you see that piece playing into it, this technology that says that, hey, we'll help you transcend your limits, but really, I don't know that it's doing that for us.
Yeah. I think you just said so much of the right things. It's funny because it's kind of like we thought, what would be really cool? We tried this for a long time. It would be really cool if we can make robots like humans.
Yeah.
And actually what's ended up happening is now we're trying to make humans like robots. And it has reshaped our imaginations. I think so much of this conversation really is about our imaginations and what we imagine a good person, whether or not you're Christian, a good person should be able to do. So, for example, there's a wonderful book called 4,000 Weeks by a guy named Oliver Burkeman. Burkeman is not a Christian. He's very thoughtful. He's a serious reader. It's a New York Times bestselling author and time management kind of stuff. And but he's read like Augustine and wrestles through some of these things. So he writes this book called 4,000 Weeks. Came out right after I turned in my manuscript. And I thought, I don't want to read time management, but I need to keep up with the industry, see what people are saying. So I read this book. It's brilliant. It's so good. And so first of all, 4,000 weeks is the average lifespan of someone in the Western world. And I went on Amazon. You can actually buy a wall chart.
Wow, my mercy.
Think about how depressing, like
That's
you're just
the
checking
worst
them
idea
off, right?
ever.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
That's so bad.
Yeah. So you got 4,000 weeks. And I thought he was going to be like, so go to it. And actually, in his research and writing the book, he has an aha experience. And he basically says, those of us in the time management industry are trying to convince people that they're not mortal. That's what he says. We're trying to convince people that basically if they, think of the analogies that everyone uses, like, well, yes, if you just put in the big marbles first and the sand afterward, like if you're just careful enough, you really actually can do it all. And he just realized that's a lie. It's literally irrational.
Yeah.
But by perpetuating it, all of us live in guilt and shame. And I, as a Christian theologian, think that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And so part of the like in the medieval period, the average person, when you think in villages and stuff, the average person, from what they can tell, would normally not travel more than 50 miles their entire life.
Wow.
And often they didn't meet more than 150 people. It just depended, obviously if they're in a bigger city. But, and like you said, now you can have 1,000 or 10,000 Facebook friends or, Instagram followers or whatever. And the irony is, as we get stretched out with increased abilities, we often get dislocated from relationships. And I'm not anti-technology, but you need real flesh and blood. You need people to look you in the eyes and say, I love you, and to actually physically touch you and to say, hey, you're crazy. But there's just so much about technology is your friend if it fosters real human flourishing, which is about relationships and embodiment. And when it fosters isolation, then we should ask questions.
That's a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah, you're crazy for buying that Amazon chart. Please take it off your wall.
Yeah.
4,000. That is so insane.
I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
That's for the best.
So to go to embodied, Kelly, let's
Yeah.
talk about embodied worship in the church. So I'm a pastor of a mid-sized PCA church, about 750 members. We did not have a live stream before COVID. Now we have a live stream. It's plays a crucial role in our church. Obviously, all the good things are people who are sick and traveling and other reasons. But one of the things that so I think that the worship is one of the big challenges that people in my role have today, pastors.
Yeah.
How do you shepherd the technology, all that? But you have a chapter in the 40-day devotional where you talk about a physician friend that you have, and she talks about how when she went to her yoga class, she felt like more of an embodied human than when she went to worship. And I wonder if you can help us, especially those in the Reformed Presbyterian space. I try to say it literally. We're not brains on a stick.
Right.
You're not a ghost in the machine. But this is a really big thing for us, that we really struggle to be embodied believers.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you would want to touch on that a little bit and kind of what hearing that comment from your friend meant, and then maybe reflecting on your own Presbyterian PCA tradition.
Yeah. Again, many things could be said, but how about just a couple? So I don't know if your church does this, but a lot of churches, our church does, a time of, kind of call to worship, but then there's like a greeting to greet one another. And I, like many people, don't particularly like that time. I find it kind of annoying. It's awkward, But it was going back and doing some biblical and theological study on the Holy Kiss, which you find showing up again and again in the New Testament. And then I started looking in the ancient church. And the idea of the Holy Kiss was quite significant. And I know we always like, whatever. I'm not saying we have to kiss, but like Tertullian basically said, if you conclude the prayers with the Holy Kiss, your prayers aren't received, right? This kind of thing. And so there's just something about the physical embrace. And part of what's very significant about those, so even the greeting time, like to actually look one another in the eye, shake, give a hug, pat a kid on the head. There is something very meaningful. One of the things that was so attractive about the ancient church was particularly for women and children whose bodies were constantly treated poorly. When they would enter into the sacred space of the church, their bodies were treated as holy. And the biblical metaphor was family. So family actually does hug each other, but in appropriate ways, right? It does honor one another, delights one another, gives each other space. So for me, some of those things I've started to realize there is something quite worthy about honoring and preserving those. And the last thing I would just say is, another example to me is how uncomfortable I and everyone else gets when we do like silent prayer or a time of confession and silence. And I guess I'm starting to think, I know as pastors and leaders, like we can't like, if you go more than 30 seconds, the entire congregation starts to move. If you go more than 60, people are going nuts.
Yeah,
But I do wonder.
It's true. It's true.
I wonder if we should be saying like, you know what? I know this is hard. We're going to do 2 minutes aside. Like to try and help people get more comfortable with silence and with God. There's just something about that. And to be silent together physically, there's something powerful about that.
That's really good.
I don't know. What do you guys think? What have you found?
Well, I mean, one thing that we are getting ready to do as a church is shifting the way that we take the elements in communion from having plates passed down the pews to coming forward to receive the elements from a pastor and an elder.
Yeah.
And to try to, that embodied the looking at your parishioners in the eye to give a blessing over to the kids. But I just think it's a perpetual challenge for those of us in ministry, because it's like you said with technology, the live stream does do a lot of good for people. So to continue on, Kelly, one of the questions I was really curious to get in with you today is the word optimization. I don't even think I said it right, but
No, I think you did.
No, you did.
It was good. It was good.
So in all my podcast listening, at some point, a guy, a neuroscientist named Andrew Huberman gets put in my podcast feed. Have you heard of Andrew Huberman?
I have.
Yeah.
I can't say I've listened more than like 20 minutes, but I know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's become like the high priest of, body optimization, of transcending our limits. And I know that in the manosphere, young guys, it's all about how do I maximize my testosterone levels?
Yep.
I got to do cold plunge therapy to keep, it's all about, we're going to transcend. Are you seeing this in the church? Are you seeing, and how does the church resist the subtle pull of optimization?
That's such a good question. I mean, part of this isn't exactly what you were asking, but we can come back to it. But even as you started, it just was a reminder to me, one of the terrible things that we're all aware of, and it's always been a problem, but in modern times it got worse, is just treating women as just reducing them to physical objects, right?
Yep.
And how horrendous that is. So what's fascinating to me is the way we're solving that is now we've just done it to men.
We have.
And so all the
That's
insecurity that women used to feel, now they're still insecure because they're still being treated poorly. And now the men get to join it, right?
Yes.
And so
that's so true.
all the statistics of men, self-harming.
Yeah, the body dysmorphia, that's
Body, exactly.
among the
It's
teenage,
massive
we
now.
see it among
Yeah.
the teenage boys.
two
That's
sons.
a big deal.
Yep.
Yep. It is no longer a single gendered kind of thing. So I do, and it relates to your question about optimization. Like, it's hard because, as you know, there's always some good in these things.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
that's right.
Right? Because we also live in a culture that can breed sloth and mistreating our bodies in other ways. And we should be thoughtful, whether it's about what we eat and how we engage our bodies, because our bodies are us. So it's
Right.
not that it's all bad. And I think that's what becomes hard.
Yes.
I don't know. Could a cold plunge be helpful every day? Maybe, but it becomes, I think your concern is rightly, it's not actually about that. It's these things take over people.
Yes. Yes. That's
And
it.
I think
again, the simplest way I know how to say it is, does this breed human flourishing in terms of relationship with God, neighbor, and a right relationship to creation? And if it breeds isolation and self-importance or self-centeredness, then it's at least worth slowing down and asking questions about.
Yeah, I feel like for some people in that space, it's almost you're living so as not to die, right?
Yeah.
But but it's like your health is an end unto itself, but nothing beyond that. That's how some of that stuff can kind of come across. But the reality is, sadly, as Tabitha experienced, so much of our health is outside of our control anyway. And we can do all of the things. We can optimize. We can do the cold plunges. We can take the supplements, and we can still end up sick because so much of our lives are outside of our control. So I think it's a way to breed control, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah. I don't want you going because I want to ask you a question, Betsy.
Oh, sure.
But you're right. I mean, it is funny, even with Tabitha, there are a number of things that, you know how you get these things like, if you do this, your percentage of getting this kind of cancer is less. She actually, breastfed for extra time. Like she did all the things.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
It's a total myth of control.
It is.
But I think, part of what I was going to ask you is like, for me, the danger of optimization, which is so seductive right now, is the way you optimize is by getting out of relationships. So how in the world do you optimize when you have children?
Right.
That's what I always say the most inefficient thing you can ever do is love somebody, right?
For sure.
Or have a puppy.
For sure.
What do you have? You have 4 kids?
We have 4, yeah.
So I mean, it's like, and so moms and dads, especially until they have kids, you kind of think, oh, we're strong and youthful. We'll just pop out a kid, throw them on our back, and we'll do everything we did before.
Oh, my word.
And it's just all stupid. It's not true.
Oh, I used to say I was the best parent until I actually had kids.
Exactly.
And then you learn you have no control over these children and the choices they make. And
exactly.
And
their bodies and all of that stuff.
Right.
And you can optimize and sacrifice relationships. So you can say,
that's right.
Because I got to take the supplement this time, I've got to sleep exactly during these hours.
Right.
I only eat these foods. I think it can be isolating and certainly self-important.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I really resonated with your, I don't remember where it was in the book, but where you talked about, we overestimate what we can do during the day.
Yeah.
And maybe it was when you talked about the term productivity shame.
Yeah.
You really overestimate what you can do in the course of the day, and then the end of the day comes and you've let yourself down and you're disappointed that you didn't get to X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, especially in the brokenness of the world, so often things just don't go the way that you think they're going to go. Things come up, you hit traffic, something breaks. So I really love how you focused on, maybe we need to adjust our relationship to our to-do list. And I just think it's such a refreshing and freeing perspective on accepting our limits, and not even just accepting them, but embracing them, and finding how we flourish within them. I just found it, as a mom, as you said, I found that really refreshing, and also so practical for life with our children, to be able to say to them, hey, you can do this much and no more, and that's okay. At the end of the day, you put your head on the pillow and you say, Lord, thank you for what I accomplished today, and I'm going to rest in the fact that you're taking care of me as I rest. And that's really beautiful.
Sleep is an act of faith.
Yes.
It is saying, I'm a creature, I need to rest. And no, you're right. And to actually realize that our dependence on other people, our dependence on God, these are not signs of the fall. They're not signs of sin. They're signs of the goodness of how God made us. Our dependence on others is part of the goodness of his creation.
Yes.
Sin didn't make us dependent. Sin just twists our dependencies, right? But it's also, I think about, whether you're dealing with, I wonder if you've had this happen, because I've seen this, where someone will take a young mom and she's overwhelmed. And I'm not saying there's never wisdom. Like, yes, we should, mentor people if you have more experience, like that. But it was like, okay, you have these 4 kids. I can see and this will sit down and say, here's how you should organize your week.
Sure.
And I see the same thing happen to pastors. You'll get business people who mean well, and they'll come to their pastor and like, I know you're overwhelmed. It's crazy. So and they'll sit down and they'll organize the pastor's week, right? And it's all great. And the pastor's like, it's Tuesday morning, and he's going through his list, and all of a sudden he gets a call, and this marriage in the church that they thought was foundational to the church is about to divorce. And then 4 hours later, they get a call, and a child is considered suicide, and like your week is shot.
Right.
And it's the same way with your child. Like you can't map it out. It's not that easy.
No.
But I think
wish it
from a
was.
distance. Yeah.
Well, George Robertson, who's a pastor, he talks about embracing interruptions. And I wonder how much that principle kind of should move, not just in ministry, but maybe in life too, to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embracing interruptions.
Yeah, you can't really schedule being a parent, dealing
Yeah.
with the difficult things with your kids. I wish that I
Yeah.
could say to our kids, it's 9:30. I'm tired. I'm going to go into my room. Nothing
Yeah.
will happen in your life. You will have no needs until about 7 a.m. tomorrow, but that just
Yeah.
doesn't work. I've tried.
Wouldn't that be awesome though?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, Kelly, as we wind down here, maybe you would want to maybe just one or two more questions. You quoted in the book, "Love has a speed," which is a really interesting quote. It talks about how the Lord often works, and as we come to an end here, maybe talk about how God is often a slow mover, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, part of that, the idea of love has a speed, there was a Japanese theologian years ago who wrote a book called like the 3 mile an hour God or something like that. And it's the average speed that someone walks, and it's based on Jesus walking around Galilee.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, we don't even think about how, he wasn't zipping around. He wasn't jumping on cars, wasn't airplanes. Like his
So
presence
true.
with people is really interesting. And there's just kind of a speed to it. And we all know, I mean, think of how hard it is to get people to stay with you in a conversation and to feel like they're really with you. They're not just waiting to say something, or they're not just, and now it's even so bad that people literally, as you're talking, will look at their phones, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed Progressive now has a commercial with a girl sharing her heart with her friend, and the friend's distracted with the phone, and so she gets rid of her friend and calls a substitute friend in, and he's
too
like
real.
really paying attention to her. But love does have a speed, because there is something about it, and God has. I think part of what is remarkable to me, and there's a chapter on God taking His time, is God values productivity and efficiency. They're just not His highest values, and so God could have made the world instantaneously, but He doesn't, and it doesn't actually matter if you think the world is 4 billion years old or 10,000 years old. Either way, God could have done it instantly, and He takes days, whatever those days are.
Right.
And after each day, He's like, oh, that's good. And then, He takes humanity from the, whatever it means, but from the dust of the ground, and He creates it. That's all process. So again, even before there's a fall or sin, God's been comfortable slowly working. And I just think for the Christian life, it's such a comfort to remember God begins a good work in you. He'll see it to completion.
Amen.
But He is not in a rush. You and I panic about our sanctification. He's not panicking.
Amen. That's so good.
Well, just as one final question for you, we are heading into Advent, and I think, reading this book, reflecting on the humanity of Christ, how can our celebration of the incarnation be enriched this year by meditating on the fact that Jesus was indeed fully human? How do you think that changes the way that we celebrate Advent?
Love it. So I'm about to say something, but don't take this wrong, because Jesus is clearly the center.
Okay.
But I think one of the things, especially in Protestant and Reformed circles, that could be really healthy in this is to focus more on Mary. Because to understand the full humanity of Jesus, she's not a co-redeemer, none of that stuff. But the biblical story is that Jesus gets His full humanity from Mary. And people like Tertullian in the early church who preach about Mary, and against those who over-spiritualize Jesus, who are very comfortable with His physicality, he starts to talk, like, imagine this in your sermon, but he's talking about Jesus and Mary and Mary's afterbirth. And he's trying to take things that people think are gross, and he's like, God loves it. And he leans
funny.
into it, because he's like, what you guys think is bad, our God says I delight in. And the point is, God is not angry about physicality and earthiness. He's angry about sin, because sin, he doesn't hate Betsy. He hates the sin that's disordering Betsy, right? So when he's trying to work in us, and anyways, I just think there's something about focusing again on the reality of Mary and this birth and its physicality and Jesus's, in a sense, vulnerability is very profound, because it tells us certain things about our God. And here's the main reason I'm saying it is a way to reconnect. The God of creation is the same as the God of recreation. And our view of Christian life gets distorted because we don't connect sanctification and Christian life with creation. We think it's a different thing. And it's not. He still loves our earthiness. He's still honoring us. And so the goal of Christian life is not to make you superhuman, but just fully human. And starting to meditate on Jesus and coming out of Mary and as a babe can give you a real sense of the fullness of that humanity that God delights in.
That's really beautiful.
That's awesome. I was not expecting to go to Mary.
Yeah.
But it's so good, and it makes so much sense. We could pull on that thread of what is sanctification to recreation, right, into the image of Christ. That would be a great another conversation. But we need to let Dr. Kapic go. Kelly, thank you so much. Please share this episode, y'all. This is such good stuff. And buy these books. We're talking about, as a church, the 40-day devotional. You were never meant to do it all, and then the book is You're Only Human. So this has been such a joy.
You guys are great. It's so fun. It's amazing that it's been over 20 years since I had you guys as students. So I delight to see how God is using you, and I can't wait for at least one of those kids to get convinced to come to Covenant.
Oh yeah. Hey, we
are working on.
We are working the angles. Believe me.
That's awesome. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Yes, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Intersect. Please subscribe, give us a good rating, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.